So, if you didn't see part 1 of this series, I recommend you do so. And while you technically don't need to watch part 1 to get what's happening in this video, I need the watch time, so go do that. Anyways, in the last video, we talked about the first of the 2 realms that I wanted to talk about. That, of course, being the Yeet realm, the creative city building realm. However, as I mentioned in that last video, Kripsa owned 2 realms that I wanted to talk about. In this second video, we'll discuss that other realm, and that realm being, of course, the Yeet Earth. The Yeet Earth was completely different from the Yeet realm in the sense that it's an SMP. Oh, and it takes place on a massive Earth map. The map itself was 1 to 40,000 scale, and while that may not seem that large, trust me, it was absolutely huge. And, just like the actual Earth, there were plenty of countries. I started off in Europe, specifically Western Europe, and on launch day, while everyone immediately began getting to work building their bases, I immediately began expanding. And, thankfully, because of how large the map was, Kripsa modded in planes that everyone would get to spawn in and travel easier. Or at least I would be thankful if it actually worked, because half the time the plane would just kick me out in the middle of the air and then I'd die. Okay, I'm approaching Florida right now, Will. So, what did you want to talk to me about? I made this exact same joke in the last video. It's not funnier the second time. Anyways, I began expanding rapidly, taking as much coast as I can. Kinda like Chile. Quickly trying to secure the entire Mediterranean Sea. However, 2 people would get in my way. The first one would be Kadar Cute, who owned a big chunk of Eastern Europe. And he also wanted to expand into the Mediterranean. Specifically, he wanted the land surrounding Istanbul going all the way down to a controversial piece of land over here. I especially didn't want him to take Istanbul. I mean, it connects the Mediterranean with the Black Sea, and Kripsa was planning on expanding to the Black Sea, which would have meant great trade opportunities. So, I was quick and aggressive, wrapping around the entire coast of Africa, taking the Suez, which Kripsa didn't really like, and stopping in Egypt, as I was unfortunately willing to let him take the land. But eventually, I got impatient and decided, first come first serve, and took it. Ha! I got to the land first. What do you think about that? What? Yeah, Cat's country just ceased to exist and was annexed by Claude, who would then eventually join my nation. So it wasn't really a scramble for the land and more of a, aha! I got the land. What do you think about that? Dude, I don't even exist anymore. The accident wasn't your fault. You let go. And the second person to get in my way was Kripsa. You see, while Kripsa started off all the way in India, Kripsa was very interested in obtaining land in Europe and Northern Africa. I already mentioned how he initially wanted the Suez. However, that wasn't the only part of the continent he was interested in, as he also expressed interest in taking islands of some sort. You see, early on before the realm started, we had a meeting where we discussed who would be getting what countries to start off with. And while I initially wanted the US was already off the table. And so next I looked towards Europe. However, when we were picking the countries we would take, you were only allowed to take 2. And remember, the countries in Europe are rather small compared to some of the bigger ones like Russia. And, being that I had picked France and Spain, and that I wanted to expand to at least the entire Iberian Peninsula, I gave him these 2 islands in exchange for Portugal and Italy. He even gave me Morocco as a bonus. And so, however, despite surrounding the entire Mediterranean coast, I technically never achieved my dream of owning the entire thing. Even though I didn't even need to, I could have just waited until launch day and then expanded and taken that land. It's not like Portugal was up for grabs, no one had any plans to take it. Anyways, I expanded across Europe and into Northern Africa, and the coast of Brazil, thanks to French Guiana, of course. Ah, France, the nation of not letting go of useless colonies. But I guess it did work in my favor, so you're alright, France. You and your surrendering self. You do realize France has one of the highest amount of battles won compared to any other country in the world. But funny surrender, Jack. Anyways, after my initial expansion, I began building Paris, with the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe, as well as my French home base. However, one issue with France is that it had a lot of creepers. And so, when I was trying to build my base, creepers kept blowing it up again, and again, and again. There were times where I'd be patching up a creeper hole, and then another creeper would come in and make a new hole. I remember when I was building the Arc de Triomphe, after I was finally done with the base and I was up there on the top, a bunch of mobs had gathered around at the bottom and were waiting for me to get down. Okay, just stay up here, don't move down, and I should avoid a creeper explosion. Oh, no. Eventually, I got sick of all the creepers in France and decided to build Cairo, Egypt next. And a fair bit was actually built in Cairo. Several skyscrapers had been built, the Suez Canal was extended so it could properly be used by actual boats in the game, a port was built, the Great Pyramid of Giza became my base, I built a runway and had plans on making it an actual airport, and Gigi built an embassy for his Oceania Empire. Soon, however, I would begin to expand once again, expanding across all of Africa, except South Africa, Western Russia, all of Brazil and Bolivia, and as I mentioned earlier, Claude deciding to join my nation, effectively making me the, almost, sole ruler of Europe. However, I wasn't quite satisfied. I had so much land, but there was still one piece of land I really wanted, and that of course being some of the United States, specifically my home state of Illinois. And at one point, it seemed like I could finally get it. As at one point, Dr. Brown left the server for like a month because of some drama I honestly can't remember. And as such, his faction was completely dissolved, and North America was now up for grabs. I didn't want to get too greedy as I didn't want to spark a conflict, and so I wanted to take the eastern half of the US, stopping at the Mississippi River, and then leaving the rest of the continent alone. However, Cripsa and Will had already stopped anyone from doing that, as they both had divided the land between just the two of them in private before anyone else could do anything. I was mad, and so I started offering Cripsa things for Illinois. I don't know why. I'm not very patriotic for my state or anything. I just didn't want it under the hands of someone that wasn't me. I offered him resources, and even a land trade at one point. But Cripsa wouldn't budge. And so, what did I do to get back at him? I took Hawaii because no one else had technically claimed it. Even though the only person that actually inconvenienced this is Gigi, since he was the one who wanted to own all of Oceania. But, the thing is, even if I got Illinois, it wouldn't have lasted long anyways, as shortly after all this happening, the realm just kind of died, as ships started moving back towards the Yeet realm, as when the Yeet Earth launched, the Yeet realm completely died, and when people started playing on the Yeet realm again, the Yeet Earth died. And that's the issue of realms. It's not a server, it's more of a private thing only people friended with Cripsa can get access to. And because of that, it's sort of impossible to have super active realms due to the limited player base. And so, the realm from there on kind of just died. It shut down for a little bit, then Cripsa tried bringing it back by making it a creative world instead, but that didn't last long either. And from there on out, it's only been the Yeet realm. But that's not to say we didn't enjoy the short time it was around, because we did. And that's not to say other people didn't try to live on the spirit of the Yeet Earth, as several months ago, Gigi Does tried making his own version of the Yeet Earth on Java, which meant I couldn't play. But as far as I'm aware, that's also completely dead now. But regardless, the Yeet Earth was still pretty fun for the short time it was alive. And it's also not to say that I would never play on something like it again, because I probably would. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. But wait, before this video ends, I just want to do a special shout out to Dilly's the One for this really cool piece of fan art. It looks really good, and I honestly think he's an amazing artist. And he's also just been one of my oldest viewers. In fact, some of you really old viewers may recognize him from my recent video from 2 years ago. We don't talk about that one. So, yeah. Special thanks to him, and see y'all in the next video.